SpaceX's Starlink has the potential to be absolutely revolutionary, but is it really a game changer? There's a lot of people on the internet who are saying that. And let's dive deep into this subject here. Now, first of all, for certain people, Starlink is going to be an absolute game changer, okay? Many of you may know that I grew up in small towns throughout the United States. And one of those towns that I used to live in is a small town north of Topeka, Kansas called Holton. It has a population of about 3,000 people. At the time, now granted this was a number of years ago, the only internet provider in the entire city was the high school that provided dial-up internet. Now, that was in the days when dial-up internet was still quite common, but right now, the best internet provider will provide about 20 megabits down and about 3 up. 20 megabits down is enough if you're wanting to, watch videos or something, but the 3 megabits up is pretty bad for certain applications. For instance, the last video that I uplinked was something close to 2 gigabytes. And, to upload that video would take the better part of an hour. That's a really, really long time. And if you're streaming video, well, you can't really stream on that bad of a connection. You just can't do it. So for those kinds of people, Starlink is going to be absolutely amazing. Another example, there is a YouTuber that I know by the name of Catherine of Sky, who she does a bunch of strategy gaming type videos. And when she very first started, she had just horrible internet. She was able to upload 5 videos per day that were 20 minutes. That was all that she could do. She literally had her computer running 24/7. And absolutely forget about streaming. That was not going to happen. But she was able to make this work, and eventually she was able to get a better connection. But still, for a person in her situation, Starlink could be absolutely amazing. For people who live in the rural parts of the world, including those parts in the United States, Starlink will be absolutely amazing. Am I ever going to get Starlink? Well, as long as I'm living where I am right now, the answer is no. Why not? I could pay $60 a month, well, plus fees, maybe $70 a month, to have internet that is way faster than the fastest possible Starlink connection. I can have gigabit internet. And I'm generally speaking a fan of wired internet where you can. In fact, I even have here, hopefully you can see this, a little bit of a Ethernet cable that I use to plug into a laptop, just because not because I'm lazy or anything, but Wi-Fi is just inherently unreliable. And I prefer to have the reliability of a solid internet connection. So I believe in plugged-in internet where I can. I ran Ethernet through my house to be able to make that happen. With the wireless internet for Starlink, it's pretty good, and it can work fairly well in fairly extreme weather, but you're going to have issues that you're just not when you have an actual physical wired connection. Those just seem to work better. Now, there are some other things too. It's come to my attention that many of the people who are getting Starlink service right now are just basically Elon Musk fans. Many of them live in urban areas that have better internet, such as where I do. And they're doing that, and that just takes away from the service from other possible people. So if you have a Starlink satellite, it's able to carry about 20 gigabits up and down, which is a lot, but there's a limit to how many satellites can be over any one part of the world. And at this point in time, there's just under 1,000 active Starlink satellites in the world. And around 15 to 20 of them are over the United States at any one given time. So that means effectively, we'll even call it 20 satellites. The question becomes is how much of a signal do you need to support for one given satellite? The answer I came to is, well, let's talk about one high definition video downloaded at the same time. So that way, when everybody gets home from work and they want to just stream a video, let's call that our use case. That's about 6.5 megabits to be able to do that. So let's just call three of them 20. So that's about 3,000 different connections per satellite. So if you have 20 satellites overhead over the United States, that means over the entire United States, the continental portion, mind you, not Alaska and Hawaii, then you're only able to effectively support 60,000 people. And that's actually pretty close to the number of people who have Starlink service right now in the United States, which is around 50,000 people. So this kind of math checks out. Now, I know there are those of you out there that are saying, hey, they're going to put a lot more satellites. Well, the biggest constellation I believe they have is something like 44,000 that's planned. So if you multiply all of that out, you're still only going to have maybe a couple of million people in the United States that could possibly use the service at the same time with this kind of need. And the people who are getting this are going to be heavy users, most likely, because there is internet available in most of the country that's reasonable. It's not going to be nearly as fast as Starlink, but it's still out there. So you just will have to kind of deal with this. And this is kind of a major issue. Now, it's fantastic for the rural people. It will work great for ships to have internet. That's going to improve the speeds for there, and even airplanes and so on and so forth. There's been some news that SpaceX is trying to do that. And quite frankly, I would love the service to rent a Starlink. If I was going to a remote area and I wanted to make sure that I had internet access, I'd love to rent a Starlink. I'd even pay $100 for a week, maybe, to just rent the dish, go set it up, and have my connection and be good. And then be able to return it and let someone else use it and not take up the dish. It just seems like a better thing for me. And I'm sure that that is going to be the case quite often. But it's just not that feasible to scale up. There are some things you could do. One of the things that I was thinking of is, for the most part, internet demands are somewhat predictable based off of the time of day. So you could fly a whole batch of these in a sun-synchronous orbit so that they pass over, say, at 6 p.m. every day, so that at 6 p.m. you have a higher bandwidth, and those satellites would pass over 6 p.m. over the entire globe. And that could kind of help to distribute it, but it's just going to have some issues. The bottom line is, though, is for certain people, Starlink is absolutely going to be life-changing. But it's not going to change the internet. It's not going to do anything too insane. Sure, you'll be able to access some information. Another common thing is people talk about, well, you have Starlink, will be able to have people in China have the internet. Well, not really. You still have to license the dish for each country that it's operating in. You can't just bring a Starlink dish anywhere in the world and expect it to work. And in order to work in a country like China, they're going to have to use ground stations that are in China, so they're not going to be able to access the internet at large. There's going to be these kinds of restrictions. You can't completely free and open up everything, especially when they don't even have the laser Starlink satellites yet working. And that will also limit the effectivity somewhat for cruise ships and the like. They can only work when they're relatively close to land at this point in time. Still, it's a pretty neat idea, and it's going to make some big waves, no doubt. For people who live in rural parts of the world, it's fantastic. But if you live in an urban internet area, and you're able to get better internet, don't get Starlink. Seriously, don't get Starlink if you have a better option out there. Reserve the Starlink for the people who really need it, and then you can have your better internet, they can have their better internet, and everyone is happier. Thanks, guys, for everything. Let me know if you have any more questions about Starlink. I'm really curious what you guys have to say. Thanks for everything, and until next time, keep on tracking. Take care, guys.